My name is Jim Devine, and thank you all for being here. I'm the HR practice leader for Univest Insurance, and I will get into the introductions of our two panelists that are with me today. But I wanted to start with just a few housekeeping items. And we have a facilitated panel discussion here for you today. And the topic really focuses around the current hiring crisis. It's very complicated, but that's essentially what this is all about. There's some of it that has to do with the talent pipeline, the pool of available talent. There's some that has to do with the value proposition, including employee benefits. And we hope to cover that today through some Q&A that I'll prompt our panelists with, and then there'll be some discussion. But the questions, given the format that we have, questions are welcome. And you'll see a little chat feature at the bottom. That's disabled for chatting among participants, but the questions will come to me. I'll be able to see them. And then what we'll do is we'll reserve some time at the end to address any of the questions that have been posted. And then if, we're going to end this at around 2, but if folks want to stay on and there's some additional questions, by all means, we'll be happy to do that. There's just a reminder that this session is being recorded. It's going to be made available to attendees within a few days. There's not too many PowerPoint slides, but certainly I'd be happy to clean those up and make those available too. There are some interesting statistics that we'll go over. Another piece of housekeeping, and I'm not going to read all of this, but it's just the bottom line here is that we're not here today to provide legal advice or financial advice. And if you have something that you hear that you want to take action on, we just ask that you talk to counsel, whether it's legal counsel or otherwise. Okay. And so I'm going to get into things now. And as I said, we have a panel discussion today, and I'll moderate the discussion. And we have Nanette Sciolla Carney with us, and we also have Kristin Dougherty. And I'll introduce Nanette first, and I'll go through a little bit of Nanette's background and ask her to expand on that. But Nanette began her career at IBM before she left, and she left the corporate world to become a mother and raised a family of 7. Just amazing. And then decided to go back into the workforce in 1992. And she formed the Carney Group along with her husband, John. She did develop a banking relationship, interestingly enough, with Univest as part of her startup financing back in 1992. And she then grew the Carney Group to become a nationally recognized recruiting and talent acquisition firm. And then one of the things about Nanette that I've learned in getting to know her is how passionate she is about a number of things, but one of those is giving back to the community. She serves on a lot of boards, including the Advisory Council, Society of Professional Women, William Mercy University, Mount St. Joseph Academy, and the Chamber of Commerce of Greater Montgomery County. So with that, I'll say, Nanette, welcome, and thank you so much for being here with us today. And sorry we were having some trouble before we got things started. And I guess if I were going to ask you to just kind of expand on your company, what would you say about your business and your connection to Univest, maybe a little of that, and then what sets you apart? What's the Carney difference that is discussed on your website?
Jim, thank you. And thank you for the introduction. It's an honor to be here today, especially on a Univest webinar. So the Carney Group is a human resource company focused on talent acquisition. We specialize in matching people to our clients, and we consider our clients to be true partners. So that's a partnership. We work with people in every decade of their life, and that's so important today. 29 years of making a difference in people's lives and assisting our clients in their growth is what we are all about. So to explain to our audience today, as many of you know, that is the direct hire world, contract staffing, which can be temporary, long-term, short-term, search, and recruiting. So we will take a search. We are a contingency firm. and very fair in our approach with our clients. The unique thing today about the Univest connection that always truly makes me smile is that in early 1992, we were trying to find a partner because, you know, you cannot go into business without a bank. It just can't happen. And we were very fortunate in May of 92 that Univest wrote that first check for the Carney Group. There were the two of us and 6 kids, and everything was on the line, including our home. And they stood behind us and believed in us. And I think that's what makes them such a very, very special organization, is that they believed in us through thick and thin. And believe me, there were thins, and there were good times and tough times. We've been through several recessions in the 29 years, and they've been there by our side. So it is truly an honor today to be able to speak to their audience and represent the Carney Group and the Univest partnership. When I think about what sets us apart, I think of some very passionate things. Part of it is we're family owned. We're still family owned. And I think part of that's because we had Univest behind us financially. We're family owned and we're a woman owned certified business. And I'm very proud of that. John is part of the business, but I just carry a little more stock than he does. So we are definitely a woman owned business. We have served the greater Philadelphia region for 29 years, and we will go outside of the region because we can do search. And today that world has changed dramatically because of the way we can recruit and the mechanisms in place to find talented people for our clients almost anywhere in the United States, and proud of that fact. I think what sets us apart especially is that every client in every job order request from a client is a priority. Every single one, big or small, is a priority. And it has always been. And I believe that's why our clients have stayed with us, like us, and we're easy to do business with. We have a very deep database of candidates. Obviously, 29 years of recruiting and growing. That database is very vital to our future and to today, based on the economy. A couple things that I think make us incredibly special to our candidates is that we take a look at that resume and try to bring it into the 2021 world, make it fresh, make it new, make somebody take a look at it, even if it's not our company, but somebody else that will help them to get a position. You've got to be fresh, you've got to be new, and you've got to be on in the world of 2021 and how you are presenting your skills and what sets you apart and what makes you different. As I always say to people, what makes somebody want to hire you? Think about that. Another thing is we're passionate about making sure people are prepped for an interview. Nobody goes into an interview with any of our clients without a strong preparation so they can do their very best. And I believe all of that and that growth over the years and friendships that we have made help us to be here in 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Nanette. Really appreciate that, and looking forward to our dialogue coming up in a few minutes, but we'll move on for now to an introduction of Kristin Dougherty. Kristin leads a team of 20 benefits consultants here at Univest Insurance, has 20 plus years of experience in the industry, and that also includes 8 with Univest. She currently serves as a board member for the Greater Philadelphia Association of Health Underwriters, as well as a board trustee for Sacred Heart Academy in Bryn Mawr. So, Kristin, welcome. Thank you for being with us. And, I guess I would just ask briefly if you could, share a bit about your business, what sets you apart in terms of your team, not only on the sales specialist side, but the account management side as well.
Sure. Thanks, Jim. I'm excited to be part of today's discussion. So thanks for having me. As the employee benefits practice leader, as well as a hiring manager, today's topic is very near and dear to my heart. So I'd just like to, before we get into the topic, talk a little bit about myself as well as the team here at Univest. As mentioned, I am the employee benefits practice leader. We manage small to mid-sized business benefit packages in the Mid-Atlantic region. As the largest bank-owned insurance agency in the state of Pennsylvania, we truly can provide an innovative solution because we are providing a single source solution for all of our clients' needs, whether they're a business or a nonprofit. And what I mean by that is we are able to offer employee benefits consulting, commercial lines, personal lines, as well as HR consulting, which of course is near and dear to your heart, Jim. And our team of consultants are really committed to not just helping our clients grow and retain their employees, but also providing solutions that have become more important than ever with regards to compliance, HR resources. All of those things have been very important for our clients as we've dealt with unprecedented times. And we're finding that our clients and our prospects are dealing with more now than ever with less resources. So it's truly important that they rely on us as their business advisor. And if there's one thing I can say about today's discussion, if everybody can take away one thing, is that we're all in this together. We're going to get through this. It's so important that we lean in and we lean on one another during these difficult and unprecedented times. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Jim.
Great. Thank you, Kristin. And I'll look forward to our conversation in just a few minutes. But I did want to share some information with our audience about what's going on. What is happening in the job market as far as what really is a crisis, as I call it, a crisis of confidence. And it's both in terms of hiring managers as well as candidates. Only 29% of functional leaders report having all the talent they need to meet their current demands. 29%. I mean, I would think that there's going to always be a gap there, and that there's always turnover, and there's always going to be some deficiency in terms of meeting demands. But this is really, I think, unprecedented. And then 23% of HR leaders believe most employees will stay with them after the pandemic ends. Only 23%. So that's again a pretty incredible statistic. And then 31% of HR leaders think employees are satisfied with their current employee value proposition. I think the silver lining here is that it appears that HR leadership, whether you're in a full-time role or whether you're in a part-time role in a smaller environment, are at least thinking about the employee value proposition. Is it good enough? Are we well positioned to attract the right type of talent? And regrettably, only 31% believe that they are. And then 65%, over 65% of candidates report discontinuing a search due to dissatisfaction with the employee value propositions of hiring employers. So I think what that means is that you have a lot of candidates right now that are in or anticipating transition. It's not that they're quitting and saying, oh, you know what, I'm just going to stop. It's they've discontinued, they're going to pick it up later, but they're biding their time. And I think one of the things we'll talk about is how this environment is producing multiple opportunities for any single candidate. Some additional information about why labor shortages are happening. And there's a lot of information out there if you go out and search. Some of this information comes from the press. Some of it also comes from an organization called the Conference Board. And the Conference Board has done some recent studies of the labor demographic and what's happening with this crisis and the shortage. And it's very, very interesting. If you email me, I'll be happy to send it to you, but it is out there. So this reassessment that we're talking about, resignations are the highest on record, up 13% over the pre-pandemic levels. And so that goes to that idea of these searches that are out there, multiple offers for any single candidate, depending on the type of opportunity they're looking for. But it's not uncommon to see that multiple offer situation. We'll talk about how to address that and some recommendations, but that's what's going on. And 4.9 million or more people either aren't working or aren't looking for work this is greater than before the pandemic. So it's not just that there's 4.9 million. I misspoke a little bit. It's actually that it's 4.9 million more people than prior to the pandemic. There's some factors that are contributing to that. And one is, and I can speak to this from experience with personal friends who've kind of given up. They're at an age where they could retire. They didn't want to. They were at a point where maybe Social Security wasn't ideal, but they were in a search, and in their demographic, they weren't able to find work, even though there is this surge in available jobs. So 3.6 million people retired during the pandemic, 2 million more than expected. And there's a boost in entrepreneurship. And I think I've seen that too personally, where people have said, you know what, if I can't get the kind of opportunity I want, I'm just going to try something. I've always wanted to do whatever. And they go out and they try it. And then the I would think tragic statistic is about 3 million women that have dropped out of the labor force. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But I think my take on it and where I come out on it is that from women that have reported to me have really carried the ball through the pandemic in terms of overseeing maybe the kind of hybrid education that their kids were going through, had to oversee their learning process where they didn't have to do that before. And there's a lot of childcare that has been in a two-income family that has fallen on women. And I don't know if this is permanent. I would think that it wouldn't be. But as for right now, there are 3 million less women out there who are looking for work. And then I guess the additional dynamics that are going on right now as to why there's labor shortage. There's clearly a fear in working age older adults, fear to return to workplaces. And, you know, I think it would be biased of me to say that, you know, it's sort of the Walmart model and the greeter, that wouldn't be appropriate, but it is these retail point of sale, point of service type jobs that you can't work remotely. And so with older adults going back into the workplace, that was happening a lot before the pandemic, and that was increasing. And Nanette may talk about the 5 generations in the workplace, and maybe we don't have so much of that anymore because the older adults are just not returning to work. Young people, 16 to 24, opting for education versus working. And this really blows my mind because the cost of education, college education, is so high. I would think that some of the universities and colleges, community colleges, whatever, are struggling for enrollments, but there is a higher percentage of that demographic that is choosing education and continuing education, maybe even to graduate school as well, versus coming right out of high school, or maybe not even finishing high school and going right into some type of either manual labor or just working instead of going to school. And as we said before, these quit rates, resignations, they're historically high. And then one other contributing factor is that, you know, people weren't spending money. They're starting to now. I saw one report about Halloween, for example, where the spending is going to be up astronomically. But people are starting to spend money, but they weren't before. And so they have some savings and they can afford to be choosy before they land their ideal opportunity. Something that I didn't really get into reading entirely, but there is a report out there that, again, I'd be happy to send to folks if you email me, that there's a graying of the overall working population. And over the next, I think it's 40 years, there will be a huge increase in the 65 plus demographic and a relatively small growth in, say, what is now the Generation Z population that's just coming into working age. And that will continue to shrink over time as smaller families and their children matriculate into working age over that 40-year population. So there is some permanency to what's going on based on U.S. Working age adult demographics. There's also the non-college grad working age population is shrinking as well. And this is the big surprise, I think, is that there was this thought that well, gosh, people are getting this supplement to their unemployment benefits, and as soon as that stops, they're all going to rush back to work. And I think it's 22 states that had already stopped the supplemental benefit, and they have not seen a return to work migration as they thought they would. So there's a lot of things going on here, a lot of unprecedented things. And one of the most unbelievable statistics that I saw is in this chart. I'm sorry it's so small, but if you just look at that top bar, look at nothing else but that top bar. If you had 921,000 unemployed professional and business service candidates, you wouldn't expect them to be unemployed very long if there were 1.8 million job openings, almost twice as many openings as there are unemployed. In a tight market, you might see you might see 921,000 unemployed and maybe 500,000 openings. But this is really mind-boggling to me. And you can just go down the list, and the gap gets a bit smaller as you go down. But it's pretty incredible to see this type of dynamic developing. So I thought I'd share those stats with you, kind of set the table for the panel discussion. And I'm going to minimize my screen as we get into our panel discussion. And that will hopefully increase the size of our panel in terms of what you see on the screen here. And I think each person can change the WebEx view that you have. But right now, I think I can see everyone that I need to. I see Kristin, hello again, and I also see Nanette, and hopefully our audience is seeing that as well. So why don't we start with a few questions here and get into some of the dialogue. And I guess, Nanette, being right on the front line with the hiring process and seeing that there are candidates who are out there looking, as you said, you're communicating directly with candidates as well as employer clients. And so what are your clients doing to adapt to that hiring environment that we see right now?
Well, clients have to pivot and change very, very quickly. There is a great demand. We're in a season right now where healthcare and insurance are very critical to people. It's open enrollment time, as certainly Univest is very involved in. So we are struggling to find the proper number of licensed candidates to present to our clients to do enrollments. Enrollments take quite a bit of time. So healthcare and insurance has been impacted significantly, especially during this time of the year, which is very critical. We've been doing that 17 years and have built quite a reservoir of agents, but there are not enough because we are getting calls from companies across the country. They will ship equipment to your home. They will train you remotely. They will do everything possible to engage you. An industry that has also been hit very hard, of course, is hospitality. And I mean, we don't work in that industry, but I do feel for those organizations. I grew up in the hospitality industry. Companies need to, I have a lot of ideas that I can share later on during this webinar with HR managers as to what would be helpful. But what some of my clients are doing, many of them have asked, some of them have demanded that only vaccinated individuals be presented to them. So we are in a situation now as a recruiting firm that we do have to ask people because there are certain clients we cannot send them to. Other clients have had a flexible environment based on the standards of Pennsylvania. A lot of money has been spent on plexiglass, an enormous amount, especially in contact centers that are supporting the open enrollment for seniors as well as the Affordable Care Act. I have clients that have spent a lot of money retooling their locations, adding separators, separating people, changing workstations, buying the thermometer that you stand in front of when you enter the building, providing all types of sanitary products for their people. Trying incredibly hard. And many of our clients are shipping equipment. It's under $1,000, very close to that, to get that equipment shipped, and they're shipping it all over the country. That's how great the demand is for this enrollment season. The flexibility of schedules is very, very key.
Okay, if you can hear me, we're having a little difficulty with
So,
Nanette's connection. There you go. Okay, we might get Nanette back in a minute, and why don't I switch over to you, Kristin. Hi again, and can you hear me okay?
I can. Hi, Jim.
Hi. So, Kristin, I think you've had some open positions to fill in the past few months. What have you seen? Has it been different than you expected? What have the candidates been presenting to you in terms of what they're, I wouldn't say demanding, but their strong preference for? How many candidates are you getting? What's the kind of dynamics you're experiencing with those few hires that you had to make recently?
Sure. So a couple things, Jim. As mentioned, we've recently filled a number of positions, and we really rely on our business partners. We utilize a professional recruiting and talent acquisition firm, a number of them actually, like the Carney Group, as well as through employee referrals. I think it's important for our participants to make sure they're tapping into that resource at their own workplace. And there's nothing better than an employee referral. And with that said, LinkedIn has been a great resource as well, not just reaching out to potential candidates, but trying to engage once we've made that introduction, as well as see if there's any mutual professional connections. That's really been important. And then I guess, a couple of the surprises that I personally have experienced during this process in hiring is it's certainly, Nanette had alluded to this, it's a quicker interviewing process than ever. It's something that, I've noticed in the last number of years, the amount of time from initial contact to the hiring is done has been shortened significantly. So employers really need to sometimes get out of their comfort zone and understand that, it's important to make quick decisions, because understand that more often than not, if you're engaging with a candidate, that they're also engaging with other organizations. So if you find somebody that is a great candidate for you, you need to move pretty quickly, and also focus on, providing an excellent package to them, not just financially, but it's important to understand, what they're looking for. As we talked about, it is an employee-centric market right now. So, being flexible, providing them with not just pay, of course, but, making sure that you have a great culture in your workplace. And flexibility is definitely key as well.
And would you say that, your candidates met your requirements in terms of some of the minimum requirements? Did you have to take a look at, maybe go beyond the resume and try to assess who you were interviewing, or who you would even consider to interview, and go maybe a little beyond there so that you could really see what that individual was all about?
Sure. So I know that, depending upon your industry, you may need to find somebody that has a license, for example. We think it's important to focus on the individual and really understand their skill set and how it can transfer to, success in the role. It may not be somebody that has the number of years of experience that you're looking for, but it's extremely critical that you focus on the individual and the skills that they can bring to the table. Again, not really looking at your black and white requirements as you may have traditionally done. And obviously, super important to make sure that not just you're meeting with them, but that multiple people within your firm are meeting with them, getting different perspectives, not just as a hiring manager or anybody in management, but also their peer group.
So great. And we talked a little bit about where we are right now in terms of open enrollment season. Maybe our audience would appreciate understanding what are some of the newer benefits that employers are considering, given the pandemic, flexibility in work environments and things like that. What are some of those things that you've seen?
Sure, that's a great question. As you know, we're in the throes of open enrollment season. Fourth quarter is extremely busy for us. So two things that have kind of bubbled to the top as far as what is critical for an employer to make sure that they're either enhancing or continuing to offer and communicate. First and foremost is mental health benefits. I think that's no surprise to anybody here on the call today, but also virtual benefits. So I'll start with virtual benefits. Virtual benefits have been embedded into many health plans for a number of years. You may have heard of Teladoc, Doctors on Demand. Those are just two specific brand names that I can reference. But you know, due to the pandemic, the utilization of those benefits have gone up exponentially because they had to, right? I mean, members weren't able to actually physically go into their physician's office to access care, so they were forced to use the virtual benefits. And it's interesting because as slow of an adoption as it's had as a result of the pandemic, over 56% of consumers have reported that they are going to continue to not only use their virtual benefits in some way, but some are saying that they're going to use it, you know, as much as they possibly can rather than going back to traditional methods. And then I think that dovetails nicely into the mental health benefits. Mental health is, of course, you know, something that has been super important to benefits programs, you know, for as long as any of us can remember. But with the pandemic, with everyone being at home, dealing with a lot of stress, anxiety, being confronted with situations that they've never been confronted with before, juggling work-life balance, homeschooling the children, that's, you know, that brings on a lot of stress and anxiety. So mental health really became something that, quite frankly, lost a lot of the stigma that people were traditionally associating with mental health. So that's been a great thing, being able to talk about, you know, the needs that are out there. Insurance companies have responded by providing additional access points to members. So, you know, tying in the virtual benefit, we see a lot of insurance companies offering mental health benefits virtually. So that's been really critical for, you know, not just people during the pandemic, but again, post-pandemic, we're finding that people are utilizing this more and more. And quite frankly, it's replacing traditional care in situations that are non-urgent situations. I just think of a real life example of a member that had talked to us about a teenager in their household that was a little concerned about going to physically see a therapist because they were concerned that maybe a friend would drive by and see them walking into that therapist's office. So having the ability to meet with that provider virtually was truly life-changing for that individual. So that's just one example of a way that both mental health and virtual benefits have really changed as a result of the pandemic and becoming super important as we talk about open enrollment this year.
And as a follow-up, you know, I've worked in larger company environments and that have offered employee assistance programs, and I've always kind of associated an EAP with, you know, there's an additional expense. It's mostly for larger companies. Has that changed? I mean, have we seen that come down into being available in, say, the smaller employer footprint?
Absolutely. EAPs have traditionally been reserved for larger organizations, and they have 100% made their way into the small to mid-sized market. EAPs are a great resource for employers to provide resources to their employees, whether it's emotional support, whether it's financial support, or maybe it's a critical response, such as the pandemic, right? A lot of people in the workplace want to know that they have a confidential resource available to them. EAPs are one other benefit that you can add to your benefits package, or some employers might be surprised to find out that it's already included in their traditional benefits, whether it's your medical insurance or your life or disability insurance carrier, a lot of times there is a baseline EAP product embedded into their program. So typically it's around 3 face-to-face visits for employees to meet with a therapist or a financial services provider, or maybe it's something along the lines of seeking help or support for elder care. Those are some great things that are embedded into an EAP, which could, again, potentially be embedded into a traditional medical plan. And then if they need more robust services, they can, they can always speak with us about purchasing what I would consider a buy-up, which would have additional resources and a number of increased visits.
Okay, great. And I have a follow-up question for you, but I think we have Nanette back on the line in audio only. Nanette, are you out there?
Jim, I am out here and embarrassed to say that the entire office park in Bluebell went down with electricity.
Oh my goodness.
No kidding.
In the middle of a webinar. How does this happen?
Oh my goodness.
The whole complex went out.
Wow.
No lights, nothing.
Wow.
Anyway, thank you for letting me jump back in. I'm here.
Yeah, we talked about pivot, and that's what we just witnessed. Very creative to come back in on audio. So Nanette, Kristin just talked about some things that are related to virtual benefits and some of the dynamics that have occurred as a result of the pandemic. And one of the things that I was wondering is, we started to talk generally about what clients are doing. Have you seen anything specific with your clients about trying to attract, the talent they want or they need? Is it more about them presenting their jobs as they've done traditionally, or how are you counseling them now that we're in this hot, competitive market with the job with shortages?
Well, the way I have really, some quick bullet points that I have really for clients and HR managers and companies out there today. I think it's really important that they take a look at the job description that they're looking for and look at the people in a very different way. Be more open-minded when people approach you and when you see a resume, because if they haven't come through the Carney Group, they're probably not as great as looking as they should be. But I would say this. Let me give you my thoughts as to what I tell clients, even those that I'm working with directly on a search. They look to me for guidance, and I'm certainly flattered to give it to them. Interview quickly. Respond quickly to your candidates. Move faster with an offer if you really feel this is a good person. I don't think you have to overpay, because I don't think that that's going to keep somebody if they're not happy. Certainly appropriate pay is certainly warranted. On board them in a very positive way, faster, train more. Let me share a little bit about how I feel about mature workers that are still staying in the market today. The Carney Group was founded on helping people in transition, which is what we do so well, and we've been doing that. And as I shared earlier, we represent people in every decade of their life. The mature population at any decade is a great worker. They're very loyal. You just need to have a little more patience with technology. Certainly, we've had our challenges today, let me tell you. But technology is changing so rapidly that most of us cannot keep up with it, let alone people that are not using it every single day. So if more patience could be handled, and I do advise on this, they're a great population. My great concern is that a lot of people are now retiring early at 62 plus, where we as organizations, we're counting on that population to stay around through at least 70. So that's changing the demographics very significantly in a very challenging time. Reassess your requirements of what you really do need. Everybody can't do everything, but you can make it work if you're creative. I believe HR managers and people that are hiring and managing, if you could just remove this one line from your repertoire, we are still interviewing and we will get back to you. I can't even believe how many times this turns people off. It's just a standard line. Leave them with something very positive. We need people. Sell your company. Use passion in your message. You are selling your company. You want this person to think about you as a potential employer. To the senior HR managers out there, I do share this thought, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. Make sure that your junior managers, your junior HR assistants truly know how important recruiting is to your company. Make sure that they can sell with passion. It's key. Workforce safety of all kinds is very, very important today, and you must let people know that are looking at your company that all of those factors, whether they be health-oriented or just safety-oriented, are in place. There's a lot of jobs, as you already know, 9.2 million out there today. It is a candidate's market, make no mistake about it. As just like real estate, it's a seller's market. So be flexible if possible. Be able to send equipment home if you're in a position that that person can truly, after being trained, can work from home and make a difference. These are really critical things that I think we tend to forget because our market has changed so quickly on us. Mentor your staff. Make sure the ones that are there, that are trained, can be retained and connected. And if they're working from home, you're going to have to work doubly hard to keep them connected because somebody is going to steal them away from you. Those are very key points, Jim, for today.
Great. That's great, Nanette. And we're going to come back to this as we close out with some recommendations, some key takeaways, and we'll have an opportunity to address that again. In the meantime, I did want to get back to Kristin. And I guess it goes back to this renewal season that we're in, Kristin, and are these lifestyle benefits being addressed by our clients? Are they taking a harder look at them? And maybe you could go, with that virtual benefit idea, go into that just a little bit more, because that is a trend, I would think.
Sure. So absolutely, EAP, virtual benefits, all top of mind. Lifestyle benefits, meeting the needs of your employees today are different than they were 3 to 5 years ago. So I just think about the traditional family. An employee and a spouse and children aren't always, your audience today. So, I think everybody's either gone through or knows somebody has gone through getting a pet during the pandemic. So pet insurance, as crazy as it sounds, is something that, people are asking for today because, for a lot of people, their pets are their children. So they want to be able to go and find benefits in their employer workspace to support them. In addition, we're also finding that, lifestyle benefits in regards to voluntary benefits. Again, finding resources at the employer workplace that they maybe can't get on their own. So I think about an individual that maybe can't get life insurance on their own because they have a medical condition, a pre-existing condition. Well, if they can get it through the workplace, that's going to create more stickiness and a connection to that employer. And that's what everybody's focused on and really trying to, attain in today's marketplace is keep their employees connected and make sure that they're meeting the needs today, not of what they've been offering in the last decade or so. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, I would think so too. And I think of that flexibility that I think right now is the number one preference for job seekers. Obviously, in some trades, it's not possible. But the traditional value proposition really is changing. And I would go back to Nanette and just ask, do you see a lot of the candidates that you're interviewing say right up front, things like, well, I'm only going to take this job if I can work from home, or I have to be able to work from home, you know, 3 days a week? Are there conditions that speak to flexibility that you're seeing people that are vying for positions they're requesting or even requiring?
More than ever, Jim, more than ever. So we have to do a thorough intake, and what we do is share with them the clients that we're working with and what their needs are, and how can we make the match happen so we can keep people employed and service our clients' needs. So much of that flexibility is out there, but most definitely we get those calls. And because the environment, the economic environment, is constantly swirling around us during this pandemic, people feel that if I need to work at home, I'm going to request it. And if you can't find me a company that will work with me, I will find one somewhere else. So we're great listeners. We're very compassionate for our people. And hey, as a mother of 7, I understand completely what women are going through today. And I could, totally expound on what's happened to them and the slide backwards that they've taken during this pandemic. But most definitely, to answer your question, we do see it. We see it every day. Every time a client calls us with diversity of work, we are very excited because we have people that we couldn't place yesterday that we can now place today. So we're working very hard to get people back to work in any way that we can.
And in that search process, you mentioned that, you've had the opportunity to go national on some things. And let's just say, for example, I have an opening right now and I talk to you. Would you encourage me, if it was some work from home type opportunity, that I should look in different states and different zip codes than just, say the 3 zip codes around our office location? Is that an active dialogue that you're having with your clients?
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And a client, let's go back to insurance. So if you're licensed in accident and health or life, and you support the Univest world of insurance, and you need 30 or 40 agents to help you do enrollment, they can come from any state in the United States as long as they have the credentials, and they can be trained, via webinar, via Teams. A lot of companies are using Teams, and they're very, very excited to be able to get the labor pool. I really do. From Texas to Philadelphia, I have openings for people with that talent and those accreditations. So that is particularly an area that is very sweet in my pool of opportunities right now. And it touches upon everything, certainly, that Univest does. So that's definitely one that I can speak to and line up people immediately.
Yeah, and that's consistent with what I thought, and but I have to admit that I didn't think of it. I have a posting right now, and I just went out and I'm committing, I guess, the mistake or the oversight that we're saying you've got to overcome here. And I, in fact, as I was preparing for this, I did go back to our internal staffing person and say, hey, open this up. Let's bring in candidates that are from other areas, because we don't need to hire in the zip code. The person can do this job from home. I'm going to share my screen again. And there's just a few closing thoughts that I had. We're getting close to our 2 o'clock time limit here. But I think some takeaways, we always try to do this with our webinars and give you some things that if you didn't hear in what we said before, that we highlight for you here. And I'll ask Nanette and Kristin to expand on this a little bit. But first of all, are you moving quickly enough through the hiring process? You have to ask yourself that. And I'm asking myself that as I go through the process that I'm going through. Where you have in say the smaller environment, and you've given someone the task of recruiting and filling an opening who doesn't have that experience, it happens all the time. whatever you can do to bring that person up to speed or to encourage them to self-learn or provide development opportunities for that person, learn what they need to so that they can move quickly enough through this hiring process so that they don't lose key candidates. And are you selling your employee value proposition to candidates? As Nanette mentioned, are you using the same job description you've used? Do you even have a job description and you just repost an ad that maybe the last time it was open was 3 or 4 or 5 years ago? You have to put things up front that are going to attract someone who's looking at it within 3 seconds. And they're online, they're scrolling, and if you have a brand name, I was out with a client in the area who has a really, really strong brand name, and they're doing pretty well in terms of filling their open positions, because when people see that brand name, they say, oh, I'm going to click on that and see what they have available. But if they're scrolling through and you don't have a marquee brand name, doesn't mean your employees don't love you. It just means that maybe a lot of people don't know who you are. You've got to figure out what you're going to say that's going to draw that candidate in to your opportunity and highlight your value proposition. Why would somebody want to work at your company? And highlight that. And are you prepared to change minimum job requirements? Are you going to develop and train new hires? Are you going to stick with, I need 5 to 7 years of experience, I need these skills, I need whatever? Are you going to drop that to 3 to 5 or lower and say, you know what, we're going to expand our pool and we're going to develop these folks internally, and we got to pivot, we've got to gear up for this, because we're not going to find, say, the people we want in the numbers we want. And then, have you considered expanding the types of positions for which you traditionally engage professional recruitment assistants? And by this, I mean, certainly if you have, $15 an hour type positions that you can get through referrals and you can post ads for, and that's the way you've traditionally done it, by all means, the balance of fee versus the value you might get out of that lower paid position in terms of finding someone might not be the right balance. But as you move up that salary level and you sort of had a line that said, hey, for anything that's under this amount or this level, we're just not going to use recruiting service. You might need to rethink that a little bit and drop that a little bit lower to get the kind of horsepower you need to bring people in. And then, will you have patience for a longer development process? We are going through that at Univest. I think all employers are going through that, and there has to be a commitment to training people, engaging other managers, engaging longer time employees to sit with those people when they come in and not let them get frustrated on the way in the door because maybe they have a longer ramp up than you would normally expect. And then, heading into open enrollment season, are you aware of what benefits employees value most? And the question I would even drop back to is to say, are you really aware of what benefits you have? It becomes a bigger part of the equation. Have you gone in and spoken to your broker about what are the key aspects of the benefit programs we offer to our employees? And what could I highlight to people that would be helpful and might draw them away from a competitive employment opportunity? These are things that maybe have been taken for granted, and you might need to rethink them. And then I would just open it up to Kristin or Nanette if you have any thoughts about any of these bullet points, and maybe there's something I missed.
Jim, I would jump.
Oh, sorry. Nanette, I think you were jumping in first. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jim, I would jump in real quick because I know we're close to 2 o'clock. Sell your culture. Sell your culture. Sell your brand. Maybe you're a company that's not as branded like the ones that Jim was just discussing. Sell your brand. Sell why somebody would want to work with you. Be a great mentor. Be patient with new hires, and also be patient with people that, those new hires that have started. Give them a chance to get their feet wet, because somebody else is looking for them and you don't want to lose them. You've worked so hard to get them in the door. We're going through something that I just read recently, and I'll close with this thought. Yes, we have a pandemic, but we are also going through a sandsdemic. which means without people. And these are very different times. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Nanette. Kristin, sorry, you were going to say something.
Oh, no worries. I was just going to, I think Nanette's her last closing comment dovetails nicely into one of the things I was going to mention. Culture really builds connection. So whether it's selling your company during the interview process or maybe it's, quite frankly, retaining your current staff, you want to make sure that you're asking the questions of what's important to your employees. So what you're presenting as far as culture and benefits package is super important to those that you're hiring, but it's equally as important to those that you currently serve. So, engagement's critical, as well as relying on your trusted business advisor. So with that, I just want to thank you and thank everybody on the call today. I know we were right at the 2 o'clock hour, but it was a great hour spent. So hopefully you all appreciate what we brought to the table today.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristin, and thank you, Nanette. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. We really appreciate it. We had a really nice turnout. I didn't see any questions come through in the Q&A, but certainly you have our contact information here. I would welcome any calls, emails. I know that Nanette and Kristin would too, but we are right at 2 o'clock. I'll respect everyone's time and say thank you. And again, thank you, Nanette and Kristin. And I hope you all have a wonderful day, and stay tuned for our next webinar, which should be coming up in November timeframe. Okay, thanks so much. Have a great day.